Well, I guess we can just get rolling. I am here. I was just telling some folks this morning, we're down a few people in Olympia because the flu bug or whatever it is has hit us. So I am trying to fight that off and not get sick myself. But there are a lot of people not here right now. Um, we just spoke a week ago, so I haven't had quite as much time to look into a few things. We identified 3 or 4 bills, and I found 1 or 2 others that are potentially interesting. And so I'm in the process of researching some of those bills. One of the bills, actually 2 of the bills, that we discussed last week are scheduled for a hearing tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. The bills that I think Mr. Lawrence identified that deal with the AP exams. There's a House version of that bill and a Senate version of that bill, and those are called companion bills. When they're introduced, they're exactly identical to each other. One is introduced in the Senate by members of the Senate, and then one is sponsored in the House by members of the House. And as it turns out, each of the policy committees is having a hearing at the exact same time tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, I think it is. So I'm going to go and watch one or both of them. Sometimes since I have multiple clients, I often will find that I am in a hearing on one bill and I will leave that hearing and go to another hearing and try and catch a little bit of a hearing on another bill and then go to a third, fourth. Sometimes there are 3 or 5 hearings going on simultaneously on things that I'm trying to pay attention to. So it would be, I guess, something like if you were going to one class, but there was another class you were taking concurrently, and so you had to bounce back and forth between classrooms to try to keep caught up. It gets a little bit confusing. But with respect to the AP exam bill, well, I'll go and I'll watch the hearing. I also have an appointment tomorrow afternoon with the prime sponsor of the bill in the House, Representative Stambaugh. She's from Puyallup. She's one of the youngest members of the state legislature. We talked about her a little bit last week. She was active in the voter pre-registration legislation that your previous class last year worked on. So I'll visit with her and get her take on what's going on with the bill, what she thinks, what she thinks the problems might be with it, that kind of thing. And if you're still interested, I'll tell her about your interest and see if she has suggestions for you in ways that you might be able to engage to help move the bill through. I also talked to the House Education, the Higher Education Committee staff member about this briefly. And as I don't really know the subject area very well. And so I just told her what I was doing with Meridian High School and asked her a little bit about any just broad strokes background on the bill. And all she could really tell me is that this bill has been introduced before and it hasn't gotten very far because the 4-year institutions like the University of Washington, Washington State University, those schools usually oppose it. I don't know exactly why, but we'll find out tomorrow during the hearing. So I think if this is something that you all are interested in working on, then I would suggest that you listen to the hearing. And if you can't hear it real time, which I suspect you can't, then you can pull up a link on TVW and watch it after the fact. And I can try to help provide a link. I'll send it to Mr. Lawrence, and then maybe you'll have a chance to look at the hearing later on in the day, or anytime you want. But I think it would be useful if you have a chance to look at that. So I'm going to stop now because I've just been talking for the last 5 minutes. What do you think? Is this something you've looked at further? Is this a bill you seem interested in still? Are we on the right track with this thing?
Well, Dave, one thing I did is I looked up several other bills as well, and I put together a packet of the bill reports or the digests for them.
Okay.
Peruse a bit, so they have that in front of them. Plus, they have that legislative report that you made. So they have all that, and I guess we haven't really been able as a class to talk through and get like a vote or anything on where we're at. I can tell you the other ones that I put in here. One, the copy of that voter registration one that was last year, the 5110. And then I put one, there's two other graduation requirement bills that I thought they might be interested, but you guys don't have to speak up about it. One is 1012 House Bill. It's eliminating the high school science assessment requirement.
Uh-huh.
And a similar one, House Bill 1046. That one's to try to decouple all testing from graduation requirements.
Okay.
And then Senate Bill 5192, which is extending the time for voter registration.
All right. Okay.
Almost the same day registration bill, but not quite. And then the last one was 5155, which is about suspension and expulsion of kindergarten kids. Ending that.
Okay. That's a good list.
And then you said you had a couple, so maybe you want to tell them about those.
Yeah, well, one I had was Senate Bill 5571, sponsored by Senator Palumbo, that deals with school composting and recycling. And there's another one that I really don't understand yet. I've only glanced at it. It has only one sponsor, Senator Baumgartner, and it is Senate Bill 5583 relating to the rules and policies of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association. So that seems sort of technical, and I haven't been able to get into that one yet very deeply. I don't know what he's trying to do here. But so we have a pretty good list. It seems like we have maybe 7 or 8 possibilities here. So what I would suggest is I take this week and I try and talk to sponsors about each of the bills on our list and get a sense for what they're trying to accomplish, where the bills are going, whether there's any traction behind them, who is supporting and who is opposing them, that sort of thing. So we get a better feel for a vehicle that might be able to go the distance. And then next time we talk, I think it's 2 weeks down the road, then we can zero in on maybe 2 or 3 of these and work on them. If that sounds okay, I think that would be a good way to go. I will continue to keep all the bills we've just listed out on the tracking list, so we can continue to watch them. But we might want to narrow our focus to just a couple of them.
Do you guys want to have anything input or feelings about any of them? Thoughts? Any like initial? Yeah.
Like the voter ones are kind of boring.
The voter ones are boring.
Agreed.
Not really good. Okay.
Yeah.
I think the education ones are a good idea, like the
I like-
testing.
Yeah.
I like
I really
that.
like the AP go.
I like limiting the
Oh, I
testing,
like
right?
the
Like I like the AP.
Okay,
AP.
let's try to go 1 or 2 at a time. That's fine.
I like the AP one because then that affects us pretty much directly.
Okay.
Not the bill.
It could
It could.
affect you absolutely directly. If it was passed this year, it could affect you this fall.
But not
Yeah.
for private schools. Right?
Yeah, not for private schools, which
So,
affects
yeah.
not like
Yeah.
the majority of us. But I think it'd be really cool for that. I like that bill.
Okay, some other?
I think we should vote on like each one just real quick because we kind of already have feelings on them. So even before we like dive further into them.
Okay, maybe we can narrow the list a little bit right now.
Yeah. Like real quick.
During
I also really like the one that cuts all the science, the test things.
Yeah.
Stupid, those are so dumb.
Just the like the S back.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should
Those
get
are
rid
really
of those.
we need
Get rid of
That's
those.
just.
I
Don't
think,
replace
Finish.
it.
yeah. Here's the thing, and what, it's good for you guys on that is it's really smart for you to be able to look at something that you have experience and can talk about from experience. You know what I mean? Like that's just really helpful if we were to talk to legislatures, don't you think? Dave?
Yeah, I would like to underscore that because when a legislator is sitting on a panel or a committee, they hear a lot of people come up to tell them what is good or what is bad about a bill. Most of the people they hear from are people like me, and I'm paid to articulate a point of view. And when we call them real people, quote unquote real people, show up at a hearing and are impacted in a very direct way by the legislation, that is very powerful. And so if you have a bill, I'm not sure which one you were referring to, maybe the AP bill that does affect you guys directly, and you come in and make a point, or you reach out to your legislators, you call them, or you write a letter or email about it, that's much more impactful than to the members than having somebody like myself articulate a viewpoint. And it's much more impactful than were you to choose a bill that doesn't have as much to do with you. Just, if you were to pick something as a sort of academic point of interest, like, I suggested EV legislation as a possible topic last week. Well, that would be okay, but it's not something that I think you guys are directly involved with that affects you in a meaningful way right now. And I think that's what would be most compelling.
Well, do you want to, do I see a consensus that we wipe out the voting ones?
Yes.
Can I
Okay.
say something?
Yep.
Okay, about the kindergartens. I feel like our class is already too conflicted about it.
I want to
The
I want to
kindergarten
kick the
one.
kids out.
Okay.
So-
How many in general think that we shouldn't be kicking kids out that are in kindergarten and first couple elementary school? How many think we should kick them out, maybe even more?
How many just do not care?
How many don't care? So that, I think you're right. That as an assessment of where we're split, you're right.
I like it too because it's interesting.
It's the only one I'm really.
Oh, okay, that's the only one you're really interested in.
Yeah, that's why I have an opinion.
Ah, okay. What about the other science? What about the AP test one? How many like that one?
Sure.
AP test one.
Maybe.
Okay.
I'm fine with all the tests.
What would happen if it was
Kicking
passed? It makes sense.
Okay, right, you guys. What would happen if that was passed? It would require all state universities at this point, with the way it's written, it would actually, what it would do is it would create a council that's going to determine what a 3 on the AP test will get you at all state schools. So it would be the thing is, it would be universal what a 3 gets you.
Okay.
Now, it doesn't talk about 4 or 5, but it would be a universal 3 would get you something at all state schools.
Not the science one.
What about the science one, eliminating the science test?
What's the difference? What's 1046?
What's the difference between that and the all test one?
Yeah.
So then the all test one would get rid of the SBAC that you have to take for reading, writing.
And science?
And so right now, you only have to do the reading, writing, right? So 10, 12, in 2018, the science gets added to that list of, so you have 3 tests that you have to take. So what 10, 12 would do would just stop the science from going into play, but leave the other 2 in place. 1046 would get rid of all 3 of them.
Yeah.
I like 1046.
I like 1046.
Is a good one.
Okay, so do you hear that, Dave? It sounds like House Bill 1046 has a lot of interest.
I got it. So I haven't looked that one up. Who do you happen to know who the prime sponsors are?
You guys got it there.
No, the AP one too.
And the AP one, both of those would be interesting.
Oh, and so that's 1333.
Somebody should call Ethan Moreno right now.
Representative McEwen,
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah,
but it only has one sponsor listed.
yeah. So that's another point. Sometimes bills that only have one sponsor, they don't go as far, just because I'm not sure what's motivated this one sponsor to introduce the bill. It may be he heard from one constituent about an issue and he wanted to do something, but he doesn't have, and I'm speculating here because I don't know, maybe he doesn't have any expectation that this moves. He may not be that interested in it. He might not be willing to really work on it, but he's done something for a constituent by introducing a bill, and so he can say, well, I dropped this bill in for you. So what I'll check that out though, because sometimes, you know, he was in a hurry maybe and he didn't want to run around with a signature sheet and collect a bunch of sponsors. I don't know. Let's figure that out, but we'll keep the AP exam bill, that's 5234 and 1333 on top of the list, and 1046. And
Can we also, let's look at that expulsion and suspension one too, because that could be pretty interesting to at least dive into. Even if we have consensus on it, we may, as we learn more, or we may not, like we may.
Right. That's fine. Okay.
There's a pretty good summary in here of it and what it affects, how it affects kids and the people that are, you know, it's
Right.
got a pretty, it looks like a pretty good, Senator Billing looks like the prime sponsor of it.
Billig, yeah, he's from Spokane, and he's also a key supporter of the pre-registration effort that we worked on last year. So what I would suggest, I think our next talk is 2 weeks out. What I would suggest is that I'm going to go ahead and do sort of the due diligence research on my end, and I will send you information about all of these things, what I learned. And then I think it would be useful for me to have you all take a look at these top 3 issues and identify what you think they'll do, how you or your community is impacted by these things, and what, you know, why it's a good idea or why it's a bad idea. And then one additional step would be to identify arguments that the opposition will make. So if you support a bill, what do you expect the other side is going to say in opposing that bill? And then we have to think through how we're going to respond to those arguments. Does that make sense? And I think we have, since we have 3 or 4 bills here, there's plenty of things to work on. So we can do that, and then the next time we can talk about, you know, a little bit about advocacy and what we can do with these arguments that we have, and we'll talk a little bit about status update on all of the bills that you are most interested in. I'm also thinking it would be fun to have one of the prime sponsors come in and join me for one of these sessions. So if that is possible, I'll see if maybe Representative Stambaugh, who sponsored the AP bill, or Representative Billig, who sponsored one of the other ones, I can't remember now which one, if he's available or if she is available, maybe they could join me, and then they could talk a little bit about what it's like to be a legislator in this place and how they go about their job of working on this stuff, if that sounds interesting to you all.
It'd also be great if you got a hold of Tucker Bronco, if he's around.
Yeah.
Find out what he's up to.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I haven't talked to him for since our last connection. So Okay, well, I will do those things. Now, the other thing I wanted to ask you all is stepping back from these specific issues, but did you see anything on the news about there was an anticipated showdown in the Senate over school funding? Did you hear much about it up there?
I did, but I don't think they did.
Okay, well, last week, the Senate Democrats saw an opportunity because I think we talked about how the numbers are fairly close, right? The Republicans have a majority, but they only have one more member than the Democrats do. So one of the Republican members was appointed to a job in Washington, D.C., and resigned his Senate seat. So the Democrats saw an opportunity that they thought they might be able to exploit because the Senate is temporarily tied. And so they are thinking that they could, with the help of the lieutenant governor, who is also a Democrat, they could try to get the rules to change so that they could position a bill that would continue with some school levy funding, at least temporarily, to advance. It's a House bill, and it came over from the House, I think, early last week. And it ended up sort of fizzling because the Democrats didn't realize that one of their members also was out of town and unavailable. But the interesting part about all this was that there was only really one Republican on the Senate floor, and there were 23 Democrats on the Senate floor. And it was all procedural stuff, but the one Republican was able to hold off the Senate Democrat effort pretty handily. So these struggles and tug of wars are going to continue through session as the numbers of Democrats and Republicans remains very close. But it was an interesting example of what we'll be seeing more of in the next few weeks. We expect that a guy named Doug Erickson, who is from your neck of the woods, will be appointed to a federal position at some point. We don't know when, but I don't think he'll be able to continue serving in his state Senate position after he starts working for the federal government. And then maybe one or two other appointments will be made. So there's with the numbers very tight like this, there is a lot of jockeying around to try to gain an upper hand using the parliamentary rules of the Senate in the case of last Friday. So it was sort of interesting to watch if you are into that sort of thing, I guess. And I guess I am. So any questions from you guys about where we are, what's going on, what's next?
On that school levy funding, do you know for sure, is it 28% that a district can raise in levy funding?
That's what I've heard. I mean, I haven't confirmed the data, confirmed it. But.
So that thing they didn't go anywhere on that bill?
No, the bill's still in the Senate, so it hasn't really been voted on yet. They may bring it up, consider it in the future, but that did not happen on Friday as the Democrats had hoped. So,
You guys have any questions? Thoughts? They're very talkative and.
well, we're much more animated today than you were last week, I must say. You had a good weekend there. So,
well, maybe we can have time. We'll be able to talk about some of our views and maybe questions that we would have, and I can email those to you.
please do. Yes.
Because they may have questions about those bills after they have a chance to look at it a little more.
Okay. And I will be sending you some information as I talk to folks around here and learn a bit more about them as well.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think
We'll talk soon.
Oh, sorry.
Amen.